Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our last virtual community forum for parents. To begin, I would like to start with introductions. I'm Bo Wright, Superintendent of Schools, and to my left.
Good morning, Dina Wilson, Assistant Superintendent for Instruction.
Good morning, Neil Lenaselm, Assistant Superintendent of Student and Family Services.
Good morning, Pat McHugh, Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources and School Accountability.
Hi, Andy Whitmore, Assistant Superintendent for Finance and Operations.
We appreciate your participation this morning, just as we've appreciated the support that we all have received from you over the course of the past 6 months. We know that there are going to be challenges that we face as we approach the school year, but we feel confident that we're going to be ready to open our doors in September and serve kids well. The format for today's session is going to start with a recap of what came out of the thought exchange that we administered in anticipation of this session, and then we're going to open it up for your questions. The idea is to hopefully inform you about what to expect this September, but also to be in a position where we can address your concerns and answer your questions. So we're going to dedicate almost the entire sessions to just that, answering your questions. So I want to start by talking about the thought exchange that we administered, and thank you to all those who participated. I want to focus on the top 10 thoughts, and 8 out of those top 10 thoughts were understandably centered around health and safety. A lot of questions around who decides whether or not a school or the district is going to close, what the standards are for closure, what happens if we have a positive COVID case in school, what happens if a child is exposed to someone who is tests positive, do they have to quarantine, what happens if my child's teacher has to quarantine, variations of all those different types of questions. So the simple answer to all those questions is that in the event that we had a positive case or we were trying to decide whether or not to close, the Department of Health would make that decision. We would contact them and they would take the lead on in all of those cases. We're educational professionals, we're not medical professionals, so we'll leave those decisions to the experts. There were, however, 2 questions that centered around instruction. One was related to what home learning days in the Remote Learning Academy will look like, and what happens in the event that we had to shut down again. So I'm going to have Dina answer those instructional questions.
Well, in our hybrid model, our students attend schools 2 days a week, and then 3 days a week they are learning virtually. In those virtual learning days, they will engage in what we call asynchronous activities, meaning these are activities that teachers will be posting in their Google Classrooms, and students will utilize their Google Classrooms through their Chromebooks. These activities are activities where students might watch a short video, engage in reading and writing, complete math activities, or at the secondary level, engage in the learning of their relative content in the course they're taking. On these days, they'll have ability to participate in chats with other students, work on projects, and so forth. So on the virtual learning days, there will be assignments that students are completing on their online platforms. In the event that we do have to go to the full remote model for all our students, it will look a lot different than it did last spring. If you remember correctly, we were in a reactive mode last spring, and for this year, we can definitely be more proactive. So the virtual learning experiences that are occurring in the hybrid model would continue. And on the days that the students would normally be in person, we would be able to provide some more synchronous lessons via using their Chromebooks.
Okay, thanks, Dina. All right, I see we're starting to get some questions in through the YouTube chat, and I should let you know up front that you can submit questions there, or you can go to our website and submit questions, rhnet.org/COVID questions. So we will accept questions in both of those places. First question centers around PPE. I think it's important to say up front that we have ordered voluminous amounts of PPE because a lot of these items are not easy to get. So I know that Andy and his folks have been really proactive in making sure that you have access to hand sanitizer, masks, things of that nature. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. As soon as the close down happened in March, we started trying to source PPE because, as everybody knows, some of this stuff is in short supply because of the demand from the hospitals. So we've ordered well over $1 million worth of items, starting with our electrostatic sprayers to do the disinfecting. It's the high volume sprayers. We had that on order in March, and actually that equipment is very hard to source, so we had to go switch vendors. We were able to find a local vendor who's able to supply that for us. We got different equipment for our buses. We do have high-pressure air compressor-driven dispensers to disinfect our buses twice a day. Face shields, hand sanitizer, disinfecting wipes, KN95 mask. Our warehouse is full of them. The vinyl and nitrile gloves. We have disposable gowns and protective suits for our nurses or teachers who might work in close contact with some of our students. We ordered infrared thermometers. They've been delivered to the nurse's office, oximeters, and we have over 100,000 surgical masks for staff and students who either don't have their own or forget them. So we go into the start of the school year in good shape with PPE.
Very good, thank you. This next question centers around phys ed. And this parent wants to know, will students have PE, and if so, will they be expected to change clothes? So Dean and Pat, do you guys want to?
Well, at our secondary level, our PE classes will be offered online for the first semester. This is due to the reason of not having our gyms accessible to us in a way that we could maintain the health and safety standards. The online learning that will occur with PE is that our physical education teachers will be posting activities and learning in videos recommending the physical activity students can encounter on their virtual learning days and keep track of a log and so forth. For our elementary students in physical education, we will not be changing clothes. They will be having PE in their classrooms or outside when weather's permitted, and they'll be staying within their home rooms to have their PE lessons.
That sum it up?
That sums the whole thing up.
Okay. Nurlan, I have a question for you regarding Cub Care. Is Cub Care available for students attending remotely? Is there any emergency care available for parents? And is Cub Care available full day?
Cub Care is not available full day, but it is available for before and after school. So if your children are coming in person for 2 days out of the week, Cub Care will be available for them. As a matter of fact, the registration process has started, and so please go online or call our Cub Care office at 359-7911, and they will walk you through the process. And there's no full day care because we are only legally exempt to provide before and after school care.
Okay, thank you. Will chorus and orchestra run at the secondary level? Yes. We will be offering chorus and orchestra at the secondary level. My child still has a loaner Chromebook from this spring. Will she need to return it and get a new one assigned to her? What do we need to do? What do we need to do if we do not have a Chromebook but are signed up for 100% remote instruction?
Okay. Well, we do still have a lot of Chromebooks out there in the households, and hopefully your students, your children have still been using them over the summer to engage in continuous learning. We do know that some students even have loaners and don't even have their original Chromebooks. With that being said, the first week of school, when students are returning to school, we're asking that they bring their Chromebooks back to school on the very first day. We are in the process of putting procedures together in order to have Chromebooks collected that are in need of repair. We do ask that you bring them back fully charged so they're ready for the first day of school. For students who do not have a Chromebook, because they're going to be new to our schools, working in the Remote Learning Academy, we will be providing Chromebooks to all students who are enrolled in either the hybrid model or the remote learning model. How the materials for the remote learning model will be distributed will be shared with families in the upcoming weeks.
Okay, thank you. Next question is related to the first day of school for students. It's important to note that our Board of Education approved an amendment to the calendar at the regularly scheduled meeting this past Tuesday. Initially, our first day for students was supposed to be September 2nd. That start date was moved to September 8th to provide more time for faculty and staff training. So the first day for students is going to be on the 8th, but we're going to be starting with cohort B. So that will be the students that attend in person on Tuesday and Friday. So those students who are part of cohort A would be starting in person on Thursday, September 10th. Does RH have the infrastructure to support full remote learning in case of another shutdown? I think that
Absolutely.
you have answered that question. We are fully prepared for that as a possibility, and we'll be in good shape to handle it if we need to.
Yeah, and I think it's important to know too that many parents completed the parent survey at the end of the school year, and we reviewed all those surveys and we identified trends and patterns. And many of the things that we learned from last spring in the shutdown, from instructional delivery, as well as some infrastructure issues we may have encountered, we've been able to address this summer. So that we are anticipating, in the event of a full closure this fall, we'll be able to operate more fluently compared to last spring.
Okay, thank you. Nerlon, this is a question for you. What's the protocol for children that need to take medication during the day if they're attending school in person?
Yes, the protocols are still the same. They can still access their medication via the nurse. So the same processes we had in place for that before will continue.
Okay. And there's a follow-up question, unrelated, but a question related to something that falls within your shop. What was the rationale behind having students in the Webster building attend 4 days per week? And if they wanted to attend virtually, would that option be available?
If they wanted to attend virtually, that option is available to any parents who choose that. The reason why there's a couple of reasons. We have students who have special needs, and at the same time, the significant mental health and well-being of these students were taken into consideration. And we felt that it was important with having the academic needs that they bring to us, with the mental health needs, and with all of the related services that they are in need of, that it was important to bring them in 4 days a week. And in addition, with the Webster Learning Center, it was easier to do the social distancing and follow all of the guidelines that we're supposed to put in place, because we only have about 62 students in that program.
Okay, thank you. What school supplies will parents need to get ready for Virtual Academy?
So for the Virtual Academy, we'll have the students use the normal school supplies that they would use in the hybrid academy. We will be sending a supply list home when we're notifying you of more information on the program. As far as the textbooks, calculators, any of the math manipulatives or resources that students use in school, we will provide those also for Remote Learning Academy students. So we are developing a way that later this month, right before school opens, that we'll have a pickup where students can come and get the materials they will need for the related courses.
Okay. Nerlon, this looks like one that you may be able to answer. My children go to daycare during the day, and daycare doesn't allow them to bring Chromebooks. How are teachers, actually this is more of a Dina question, how are teachers going to accommodate this? Because my child may not be allowed to do Zoom lessons during the day.
Right. So the one thing when we're designing our hybrid model is we are sensitive that especially our younger children on the virtual learning days will most likely be in a daycare setting or maybe having family members home with them who might not have the ability to assist them as much as parents would. So that is why on the virtual learning days, we are assigning asynchronous activities. And these are activities that students should be able to engage in independently. We're very mindful of the amount of work that teachers will assign on the virtual learning days so that in the event that students aren't able to engage in their learning during the day, in the evenings, they should be able to complete the tasks that they need to.
Okay. Nurlan, can a parent pick up a child without going into school with a baby to sign him or her out?
Can a parent pick up a child?
Yeah, what
to
will be
come
the, what will be
inside
the
the
process?
building?
So it sounds like there's concern about going into the building, especially
Yeah.
bringing a baby into the building.
Exactly. For a lot of these situations, well, let me start by saying this. Parent partnership is really going to be even crucial this year. And a lot of the routines that you knew will have to be changed just because of the pandemic situation that we're in. So what we are going to say in terms of general, with visitors coming on campus, we want to limit the number of individuals entering buildings. And so for that reason, if you are a parent who needs to pick up your child early for various reasons, sometimes it's appointment, doctor's appointment, et cetera, what we would like is for you, we are developing a Google form so that you can give us that information online. That way we are preventing paper or notes to be sent to the teacher so that we'll know in advance that you are coming in to pick up your child. And preferably what we would like to do is make sure you are who you say you are from outside and prefer to bring the child out to you rather than coming into the building. Again, we have to try to limit the number of individuals and also limit the movement of individuals within the building. So as much as possible, we will still take care of your needs, but we would like to do it over the phone preferably and definitely over emails. And so we are developing Google Forms right now for these purposes. That way you can let us know in advance if you do plan on picking up your child early. So let me say this again, because the children are going to be in school 2 days a week, we want to, as much as possible, maximize the instructional time we have with them in the classroom. And if they are at home 3 days a week, we would prefer, if possible, I know doctors' offices are open and things like that, that parents really try as much as possible to schedule those important time outside of the school day. So that's what we would like to encourage because they're only in school 2 days a week.
Okay, thank you. Andy, a question regarding the face shield as an acceptable form of PPE.
The face shield is always intended to be supplemental. It does not replace face mask. Anytime kids are on the bus or in motion, they need to wear a face mask, or staff, and a face shield is there supplemental to prevent the virus from getting into your eyes or prevent you from accidentally wiping it in your eyes. So it does not replace, it supplements.
So in short, face shields can be worn, but they need to be worn with a mask.
Exactly.
Okay. If decisions made for closing are handled by the DOH, do you know what the threshold might be to close a school or a building? Again, I'm not in a position where I can speculate. Our process is that we would call the Department of Health, and then they would determine whether or not a building needed to close, or if we needed to close as a district, or if that wasn't necessary at all. I'm going to handle these two questions because they're related to providing opportunities for children to come into school to meet teachers, see classrooms. Will there be an opportunity for 7th graders going to Roth or Berger to be able to go into school before it starts, to set up lockers and things of that nature? And quite honestly, as much as we would love to do that, and we would do that in a typical school year, we're just not able to under these circumstances for health and safety reasons. So there unfortunately will not be an opportunity where kids can come in and physically see the room, physically be in the same space as their teacher prior to the start of school. it's the same thing for setting up lockers. That's going to have to be done on the first day, and it's going to have to be done in a manner that's safe and in accordance with the regulations set forth by the Department of Health and the State Education Department. Are there different technologies that are being used this year to support remote and virtual learning?
Yes, students and parents will recognize some of the same resources that we used last year. We did not adopt any new programs for the upcoming year, but what we did do is we did secure some additional online resources that align with our current programming. So students will receive instruction on anything that might look new and different. But for the most part, a lot of similarities and I would say more like enhancements to what we did last spring. I will say that you will find that the instruction this year will be more interactive in nature. As I said earlier, we were in reactive mode last year. Our teachers did a great job responding. Our students did a great job learning and staying engaged with their teachers. But now that we're more in the proactive mode and we've had a little bit of time to plan before the reopening of school, we've been able to identify better resources to use. And our teachers will be having time before the school year to plan together to identify how best to deliver that in the hybrid and remote learning models.
Okay, thanks, Tina. Nurlan, how does a child with an IEP get evaluated if they're 100% remote? Good question.
That is a very good question. I would say to contact our Department of Special Ed, and they will send whatever packet that you need, any explanation that you need. And remember, even though we are remote, we can still do a lot of meetings virtually as well. So the first place to start is to contact our special ed department. We have 2 coordinators, one that takes care of elementary, another one with secondary, but any of the staff members, if you need any paperwork, they can send that to you as well via mail or electronically.
Okay. Is it too late to sign up for the 100% remote learning? Well, the window's closing quickly, I will say. So if you're still on the fence, you need to do it today. And you know, we're not trying to hardline people with these deadlines, but our own timelines in order to be ready for students in September are very aggressive. So we need to be able to staff both models, both the hybrid model and the remote learning academy. We need to be able to program and schedule, and that needs to happen yesterday. So if you're still on the fence, give your principal, but you're leaning in that direction, you got to call your principal today, because we're trying to make these decisions and get people in where they're going to be going for the upcoming school year by the close of business today, so that we can begin the really detailed, really complex work of putting programs and schedules together. And Pat's going to be pulling his hair out trying to staff the model.
What's left of it.
Yeah. So yeah, there's a small window, but you got to go today. You gotta make the decision today if you're gonna do that. Question related to masking. I've been waiting for this one. Okay, so the initial guidance that we received around masking that came out from the State Education Department was pretty clear. You wear a mask, or you need to be at least 6 feet apart, or you need to be behind a barrier. We've since then received more stringent guidance from our local reopening task force in consultation with the local Department of Health around masking. And that guidance basically says students and staff should be in masks at all times with the exception of meals. So students on a bus will wear masks all the time. Students and staff, when they're in hallways, moving about, will wear masks, because there's no guarantee that we can maintain physical distancing at all times. And even in a classroom, if students and staff are moving about, they need to be wearing masks. Generally speaking, most of the time, even during instruction, masks should be worn. However, what is required is that masking breaks will be taken throughout the course of the day. So our task and the task of building administrators is to help teachers identify those points in the day within an instructional schedule where it would make sense to build in masking breaks, because we know that it's difficult for students to keep those masks on all day, every day. It's difficult for adults to do the same thing. I'm a person, I believe in masking and all the safety behind it, but you know, it's difficult for me to keep a mask on all the time. I would be one of those students in your classroom that needed to take frequent masking breaks. And if I were still teaching in the classroom, I would have to do the same thing. So hopefully that answers the question. Nurlan, will Even Start be offered? And if so, will enrolled students follow the same schedule as the district, attending by last name?
Right now, our plan is to definitely offer Even Start. And again, I would say if you need more information, the best thing to do is to contact our department. We have a lot of moving parts happening within our community programs, from Cub Care to Even Start to UPK. And so there's a lot going on. So for more information, for those of you who are interested in Even Start, because Even Start is also correlated with the adult literacy program that we will also continue to run for those individuals who need ESL. So it is important that you contact us directly. Again, the number is 359-7911, and we'll be happy to meet and answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, thanks, Nurlan. Guess what, Andy? We have a busing question.
Ah, my favorite.
All right. At what temperature outside do the windows on the bus get closed? I'm concerned about my student being on the bus in the cold and windows being open and children getting sick.
The recommendations that came out from SED are 45 degrees, so when the temperature falls below 45 degrees, we'll keep windows open. I'm sorry, closed, and above that, we'll crack them to allow fresh air to circulate.
Okay, very good. Thanks, Andy. What's the plan for the rest of the classroom if a student tests positive? Again, the Department of Health will determine that, not the superintendent or anyone else at this table or anyone else in the district for that matter. It's a Department of Health decision.
However, if a student is presenting with symptoms, the recommendation is that we will isolate that student, and we are asking parents to pick that student up as soon as possible. Because the important thing is, first of all, we want to isolate the sick student from the healthy ones, but at the same time, we want parents to pick them up so that they can follow up with their pediatrician and then take any recommendation that the pediatrician is indicating that they need to take.
Thank you for making that point, Nurlan. Appreciate it. Another transportation question. If we filled out the survey saying that we would drive our children to and from school, does that mean they will not be assigned a bus route, and how will that be confirmed?
Our bus routes are going out. They're going to be put in the mail August 28th. So if you receive one that shows you were assigned a route, but you signed up to do drop-off yourself at school, just call the transportation department and let them know. But what we did is anybody who indicated they would drive their child themselves, we did not route them. However, parents always have the option for that to change their mind and call transportation if they end up needing a bus route. But yeah, our original process was not to route those people who indicated they would drive themselves. So if you do get a bus route and you don't need it, please call the transportation department when that comes in the mail.
Okay, very good. Can you confirm that there will be no COVID testing at school? I can confirm that there will be no COVID testing at school. We will have a protocol in place for COVID testing and contact tracing, but again, that will be handled by the Department of Health. We will be, and that will be, I think, you know, the health attestation that we're asking families to do on a daily basis. I think this would be an opportunity to talk a little bit about that, because I think it's important to clarify. I think folks get confused, even sometimes I think our politicians who are giving updates sometimes become confused about the difference sometimes with that as well. So I'd like to bring clarity
Sure.
to that one issue, but it's important to understand while we'll have a protocol for COVID testing and contact tracing, we don't do that at school, and the Department of Health is not going to ask a student or staff member to do that unless they were symptomatic or potentially exposed. But we are going to require a daily health attestation for students and for staff members. So I'm going to ask Nurlan to talk about it from the student end, and I'm going to ask, we got to get Pat involved in this conversation
Oh,
here.
I
He's
thought you
got
forgot
way
about
way too easy this session. So he's going to talk a little bit about what it means from the staff piece.
Yeah, I think that Mr. Wright said it earlier, that we are still an educational institution, and we are not a medical facility. So in terms of administering testing to test an individual for whether they have COVID or not, that is out of our realm. Our role is that with any kid, if a kid is sick or has a fever in school, even before COVID, we usually work with the parents to say, please come and pick up your child. Your child has a fever of however many degrees, take them to your PCP. And so we don't want that COVID testing to be confused with what we are required to do in terms of health screening questions. And those health screening questions, you have become very familiar with them, because no matter where you go right now, even to a doctor's appointment, the first thing they ask you are these COVID-related questions that we are required to ask. And the way we're going to handle that, and that's why I indicated earlier that parent partnership is even more crucial this year, is that we need parents to follow through with some of the requirements that we will be asking, because prior to a child coming onto a school bus or in school, we will be sending you a survey every night via this platform that we just contracted with. It's called Frontline. It's a health management system that is both HIPAA and FERPA compliant, and you will receive a survey every single night. And it's similar to the COVID questions you are aware of. If everything checks out fine, you will then get a notification saying, yes, please put your kid on the bus to come to school. If you answer yes to any of those COVID questions, you will also receive a notification to say, please keep your child at home, and then follow up with whoever you need to follow up with for proper recommendations. And so, but if you're gonna keep your child at home for any illnesses, even prior to COVID, please let the building know. Because sometimes when a child is absent and we haven't gotten confirmation from the parent, it behooves us to call every parent. That will alleviate a lot of phone calls. If you can let us know if your child is presenting with symptoms, that you are keeping them home, and then we will walk you through a process in terms of what kind of symptoms they are going through and what steps you need to take next.
Similarly, the executive order reopening schools in New York State not only requires that there be daily screening of students before they come to school, but daily screening of staff as well. And we are implementing with the same Frontline program online. All of our staff members will be required before they report to work to take this daily self-screening. And one of the nice features of the Frontline system is that it will give us a report immediately in the Human Resources Office of anyone who checked yes to any of those critical symptoms, such as a fever or respiratory duress or difficulty breathing, loss of smell and taste, that type of thing, that might be a signal for a COVID case. Those staff members will be required to stay home and take a sick day that day. They will be asked to contact their healthcare provider and to get any support or treatment that they need, and will not be returning to work until they are symptom-free. So we are very comfortable with this system, and we are confident that the Frontline system will enable us to maintain that health and safety for all of our students and our staff.
Very good. Thanks, Pat and Nurlan. Are we planning for full-time school starting with the second semester in February? I would say this. In order for us to offer full-time in-person instruction for all students the regulations from the State Education Department and the Department of Health would have to change dramatically, and we would have to be in a much different situation as far as our dealing with the pandemic itself. So anything can happen, but unless some things change, which would allow us to provide in-person instruction, at this point, I would say no. If a child is not doing well with the full virtual learning, will you then consider allowing the child to change to hybrid? We've asked families to make a commitment one way or the other for a full semester because, as we've talked about, it's very complex as far as the staffing and scheduling and programming for two separate models. That's something that we've never done. And under normal circumstances, we would have had a lot of these things in place for weeks now. We usually take, it's a 6-month process. And we've been asked to essentially tear our entire structure down and rebuild it within 6 weeks. So we're not able to allow students to move fluidly between models week to week, month to month, because it would create absolute chaos for us as an organization. We have to be able to plan right now for what's in front of us. And so for that reason, we're not able to allow students to move between models at will. What I will say is this, though: if a student is struggling in remote learning, or they're struggling in the hybrid model, then that presents a situation where you would want to bring that to the attention of your building principal and the teachers, and we'll work through it with families. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Tina.
I would add that we anticipate that some students are going to struggle adjusting to either model. We're going to start things out slow at the beginning of the school year. We're going to give them ample time to get used to routines and schedules and their learning platforms and materials. And the most important thing, as Nirlan alluded to earlier, is that parent partnership and communication. The one thing you're going to hear us say a lot this year to students and to staff: please be patient. We're going to monitor and adjust as we go along, and we need to be extremely flexible. In the event that a student is struggling, we will ask you to work with the teacher first, like always, and I am very confident with the skill set of our Rush-Henrietta teachers that with the parents and with the teachers that we'll make sure that we give any type of intervention, supports needed to make it comfortable for students in both models.
Okay, thank you. I have a follow-up question. Concerned that my hybrid student will only receive 2 days of new live content teaching, while students in the remote learning academy will receive 4. Will hybrid learners fall far behind?
So we had this question a couple times this week, and our intent is to make sure that both models provide a solid instructional programming so that students are receiving the instruction they need to meet the New York State learning standards. Unlike last spring, where we had some flexibility and we submitted a continuity of learning plan, the expectation this year is that we are addressing the standards. We're preparing students for assessments. So we're developing models and resources and materials to ensure that the instruction and the standards are met in both programs. We do realize that on the surface, it appears in the Remote Learning Academy that they do not have as much contact time with students. The reason for that is in the hybrid model, teachers have students in person on the days that other students are at home working virtually. And in order for our teachers in person to give the time and attention to the students with them, they are not available for the students working virtually. That is why the task and the learning that we are doing with our students asynchronously is going to be just as meaningful and interactive as what occurs in person. We do know that there might be some opportunities for our students to receive some assistance on their virtual learning days, and they are things that we're looking into once we know where our staffing allocations are and if we have staff available to provide some more assistance on the virtual learning days. At the secondary level, we have been able to build in a mini schedule in the afternoons so that the schedules that we run on the in-person days, we will offer some time that teachers will be available to connect with their secondary students if they need some assistance.
Okay, thank you. Nurlan, will you require physicals to be sent into school for virtual learners?
That's a very good question. Right now, I don't want to give you an answer that is inaccurate, and so we will put that question off. I'll have to talk with my teammates about that, and then we'll make it as part of the FAQ. But that's a very good question.
Okay. Here's a separate but related question. One anyway that would fall under your shop. At the elementary level, is the school social worker and other support services in the school available to students who are virtual if they do not have an IEP or a 504 plan?
Absolutely. We are here to service all and to meet the needs of all of the students. I have a saying where I say everybody needs shoes, but everybody needs a shoe that fits. And so we will definitely continue to provide all of these related services, whether it's in the form of counseling, whether it's in the form of the counselors reaching out, checking in on students for academic progress, whether it is the social workers reaching out to students to make sure that they are doing well and checking on the mental well-being, whether it's other related service professionals such as speech, OT, PT, we will continue to provide services for all.
Okay, very good. Andy, what's the process for picking up children at dismissal? What's the process for kids not taking the bus?
Pickup and dismissal will be somewhat similar, but the thing that's different is parents will not be allowed to come into the main entrance of the school as they have in the past. So in the morning when they're dropping off kids, every school has set up a flow in the parking lot. At the secondary schools, it'll be very similar to past years. At elementary, it'll be similar, but we're looking at trying to extend the time period a few minutes to stagger the cars a little bit better. At pickup time at the elementary, parents will be asked to show a staff member who's outside an ID and flash a card with the name of the student they're picking up, and then the staff member will call in and have that student come out and meet the car. So we're asking parents not to come into the school. We'll have a staff member outside and identify or determine who the student is you're picking up, and then we'll send them out.
Okay, thanks, Andy. Double question, Dina.
Okay.
Will children get grades this year, and how soon can we know whether or not our secondary remote learners will be placed in AP and language courses of their choice?
Okay. The first question regards our assessing, grading, reporting practices. This year, we will be following the same assessing, grading, reporting guidelines and policies that we have done in the past. We have looked at our district assessments. We've identified some assessments that we are going to put on hold for this upcoming year and make sure that we're only giving the most essential assessments in order to get a baseline of the needs of our students and make sure that we're still able to instruct them to meet the learning standards. We still will have our students at the secondary level taking their required course assessments. We have looked at the required course assessments to make sure that we have made sure that they're practical, manageable, and equitable, and a blended learning as well as a remote learning environment. Once we looked at all the assessments and made sure that they were adequate and they were essential for us to give, we're going to make sure that our students can take the assessments online. Therefore, our Remote Learning Academy students will be taking the assessments online, as well as our students in the hybrid model. Our primary students will not be taking as many online, and will do theirs in person because a lot of their assessments are more observable behaviors that need to be noted. We are doing that to preserve the time in the classroom. So the more the students can assess on the virtual days, that allows more teacher and student interaction and learning on the in-person days. The report card that you've always received, you will continue to receive this year. I know last spring we went into a pass-fail mode for our secondary students. Again, we are working in a reactive mode opposed to a planned mode. And this year we will be giving grades like we always have done.
Okay, thank you. Nerlon, a question around students who may not mask for medical reasons. Do you want to talk about the process with that? There's also a follow-up as part of this question, a concern that those students might be picked on or harassed because other students are confused and think they're being non-compliant.
Yeah, for students who need an accommodation because for whatever reason, due to medical reason, they cannot wear a mask, we definitely need documentation from a doctor to indicate that. And I'll say this, you know, we're coming into a new school year, and things are going to look different, and we will continue to use our character development processes, even our framework of PBIS, to really do a lot of teaching around how to be respectful, and so on and so forth. So those practices are not going to go away. PBIS will still be a part of our educating students about how to behave appropriately in school, what's expected in the school system, a restorative approach. Some of you have heard about our restorative practices, especially around community building. So we need to spend a considerable amount of time really teaching students again how to behave appropriately in the school buildings, what type of expectations are required within the school setting, including all of those hygiene instructions that we have to do. And so we will continue to work with every child, again, reviewing some of the expectations, and we understand that they may not understand why certain kids are not wearing masks, but we will deal with these situations as they arise on taking a restorative approach to them.
Okay, thank you. Will students be required to take Regents exams this year? At this point, we have not received word that they will be canceled, so we're planning on moving forward with Regents exams at this point in time. A question around athletics. If the governor gives the okay, will the district allow a return to play for its athletes? We fully support our athletic programs and would love to see competition in the event that it's deemed safe for our athletes to compete. A lot of these decisions will be made regionally because we all compete against each other and there needs to be continuity in terms of our athletic programs. But certainly if we're allowed to play, then the district would fully support competition at all levels. Nerlon, when and how will kindergarten screenings take place? Double question, actually triple question, but I'll help you on the last part of it. So when and how will kindergarten screenings take place?
Yeah.
What's the plan for UPK, and is there a fully remote option for UPK there?
Perfect.
Right now, there is no
Yep.
fully remote option for UPK,
Yep.
but you can talk about the plan for UPK and what the kindergarten screenings.
So kindergarten screening, please contact your building as soon as possible. The 4 primary buildings, I know they have plans. Some of these are happening online, so it is important that you contact all of the 4 primary schools, depending on which school your child will attend. In terms of UPK, we're still going with the hybrid model. We do not have a 100% remote learning option. It is a half-day program, and we felt that it was just appropriate to provide the support in a hybrid model only. Because remember, UPK is not a requirement. It is a nice but not necessary. And so for individuals who are in that program, we only have the hybrid model available. Similar to Group 1 and Group 2 in the district, Monday and Thursday is what we're going to do, and Tuesdays and Fridays. No matter what site your child attends, because we have a total of 7 sites this year with the addition of the town of Henrietta, and they will follow the same procedures and processes that we have in place for the district.
Okay, thank you. Will teachers be available in the evenings to answer questions? This is probably a Pat and Dina question.
Do you want to take it since?
People started thinking you were down there working security or something.
I know. I'll pass it your way, Pat.
There are no plans to have that type of availability. As a general rule, teachers do have a defined workday, just like any other job, and they will not be necessarily available in the evenings. Having said that, there may be times at which some of our mental health support staff, our counselors, social workers, psychologists, and others may have some availability, but they'll be deciding that on a case-by-case basis with families and with students, depending on the student need. But generally speaking, the normal school day hours will apply.
Well said. David, this audience has been taking it easy on Pat today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
But I do have one, this is one, RH employees, I think this would fall into your shop. RH employees are having a hard time choosing between hybrid or remote. I think, I don't think they mean for children, I think whether or not to
work in
to
the- yeah.
ask, to request to work in the model, because the district still has not decided what exactly our schedules will look like. Will the window of choice stay open for employees?
It's not so much a window of choice. The district has the right to assign staff to whatever program we need to in order to make sure we can deliver that program adequately for kids. But we are soliciting and have welcomed input from teachers as well as other employees if they do have a preference for whatever personal or professional reason to want to teach in the fully remote model. We're not going to be able to accommodate all of those. It's really dictated largely by enrollments and where the students are and where the needs are. But for the most part, we are going to honor those requests when we can. So there is no window of choice. I would say if someone is interested in the remote model and has not yet expressed that interest, they should do so today, because we are pretty far along with our staffing plan, and we're not, as the superintendent explained earlier, we can't continually revise and restart that staffing plan if we're going to meet the deadline of being able to notify people of where they're going to be teaching, as well as notifying parents and students in answer to the earlier question about what courses they're going to be able to get, especially at the secondary level. So really that window is just about closed in terms of letting us know where you'd like to be. In terms of schedules, we're still working on that. I just had a very productive meeting with the leadership of the RHEA Teachers Chapter this morning, and working on some of those issues. We're going to try to define that workday as best we can, hopefully within the next week to 10 days, so folks will be hearing from the Teachers Chapter. We're going to try to keep the schedules and the work days as close to what people are used to as possible. And that includes in the remote model. So the contract requirements and parameters that apply to people working in the schools will also apply by and large to the people in the remote learning model. And if there's a need for us to change or modify some of those, that will be communicated to folks by the time they get their assignment.
Okay, thank you, Pat. This looks like a Dina question. Please share more details on what instruction on Wednesdays will look like.
Right. Instruction on Wednesdays has been identified as a virtual learning day for our students in the hybrid model. As I mentioned earlier, that is going to be a day that we are going to focus on professional learning, as well as identifying a day that we could also be providing some interventions and supports and resources. And we're working through some of those details as we identify who the students are in both programs, and then aligning what staff is available and how those schedules look. There could be an opportunity on Wednesdays for students to touch base with their teachers in the elementary models, but until we work out some of the details, as Dr. McHugh mentioned earlier, with our teachers, and make sure that we've really thought through how that Wednesday is going to look, I do not want to commit to a definite schedule for a Wednesday. So that is an area of our plan that we are still working on to make sure that we can meet the needs of teachers to have time to continue to learn the new methodologies, to make sure that the instruction is as solid as possible, as well as think about some time for support services, intervention, as well as an opportunity, if possible, to touch base with students midweek remotely. In the hybrid learning plan, since they're engaged every single day, the synchronous and asynchronous instruction occurs similarly Monday through Friday.
Okay. This is a question, can you describe what the fully online instruction model will look like? I think you've done that, but this follow-up question, maybe you could add some detail here around how teachers will assess student progress in a fully remote model.
So let me go back. I think when I just said asynchronous and synchronous instruction will happen Monday through Friday, I said in the hybrid model, I should have said the remote learning academy model. So if I misspoke there, I just wanted to correct that. The students that are learning fully remote will still be taking assessments. We need to make sure that those assessments are available online. There are a few that we're working some tweaks out to make sure that they're going to be able to work seamlessly in that virtual environment, since we won't be able to do them in person. But the students that are in the hybrid model as well as the remote learning academy will follow district curriculum and take the required assessments. And our teachers will be looking at that curriculum and identifying what is most essential to teach in order for our students to obtain the necessary standards and be able to be successful in their upcoming assessments.
Okay, thank you. Andy, looks to be that we have a few questions for you, sir. Are you going to share the MSDS for the chemicals you're using to clean spaces and surfaces our children will touch?
We have them available. Once we put our detailed plan online, we'll be listing the chemicals, the disinfectants that we use. And if anybody would like the MSDS, just please contact me directly. I've already had a few parents do that, and I will make them available to anybody who would like them.
Can we ensure in our age that our bus drivers don't wear scary masks like in some other districts? We'll certainly, everybody has to wear a mask on a bus.
Yes.
Let's establish that. But we'll make sure that students and staff wear masks that are appropriate for a school setting, and the bus setting is included as a school setting. What do we do if we feel our remote learners are not getting the same quality education as others? As I said before, it's we unfortunately can't allow people to just move back and forth between models at will for all the reasons that we've been describing. The work is incredibly complex in terms of trying to essentially develop two different school systems, and we need to make decisions ASAP. And then once we make the decisions, we can't be in a position throughout the next few months where we're swapping staff and adding staff and changing schedules. We can't do that. So it's a semester commitment, and in the event that a student is struggling, we would handle the situation as we would under typical circumstances, where at the school level we work with families to support our kids and make sure that they have what they need. Does the district have a stance on students who want to write and display social justice messages and other illustration on masks? Certainly, we are supportive of student advocacy as long as it's done in a way that's appropriate for school. What is the cost of Cub Care this year, Nirlan? I don't know if you have that memorized or not.
So here's the thing, while I do not have it memorized, it is also available online. And again, I will continue to put a shameless plug for our community program staff members. So please give them a call. They have that information. We essentially had to redo our financial agreements and forms and things like that because we will not have the opportunity to offer Cub Care 3, 4, or 5 days a week. So now parents just have the option of the 1 to 2 days. So we had to revamp that and redo that. It is posted online. So if you are a parent that is in the process of registering, you will see that. Or if you need more information, again, contact our community programs at 359-7911. Other shameless plug that I have also is that if you are a parent who has just moved into the district, or if you have a kindergartner who's supposed to be enrolled in school and you have not done the district registration process, the time is now. We want to be sure that we plan accordingly for you so that we can receive your children on September 8th, so the registration process is important. That is the first step before we can even talk about scheduling.
Okay, thanks, Nirlan. All right, we've got time for 1 or 2 more questions. what are the district's plans to make up for remote kids who will not get to take advanced classes this year? Anybody want to take a shot at this one, or do you want me to take a shot at it?
Go on.
Here's, again, you know, there are trade-offs to every model that we're gonna offer this year, and there are benefits. And, you know, unfortunately, in the Remote Learning Academy, there are limitations to what we can offer as far as accelerated courses, electives, languages. And so there will be limited options if you're a secondary student who signed up for the Remote Learning Academy. But certainly, if there are accelerated courses that you wanted access to that aren't going to be offered for whatever reason, then I would say the counselors will work with your child to offer substitutes for those courses. But as I said, you know, there are trade-offs between models, and as we got closer to the deadline and parents would reach out to me, you know, I had some very candid conversations with parents. And I said, look, you've got to weigh what's most important to you in terms of the experience that you want for your children. You know, a lot of parents were really fearful about sending kids back for in-person instruction. I said, if that's your primary concern, then I think the Remote Learning Academy is for you. And then other parents said, well, I kind of want them to participate in the Remote Learning Academy, but I still want them to have access to all these electives and accelerated courses. And I said, well, if that's the priority, then you should probably go with a hybrid, because your options in the Remote Learning Academy are going to be limited. So those are decisions that as parents you have to weigh when you're making a selection for your children. I think we have time for one or two more. This one's a quick hitter. If we requested the fully remote option after the deadline, when will we find out if we've been approved? We're hoping to notify families today or Monday morning at the latest. I just saw Dina's face. Let's say today. I was trying to give folks some breathing room so that, you know, if
Most likely
if
early
people are
next
late on the
week.
draw.
Yeah, most likely early next week.
Early
We'll be
next
sending
week.
out some communication
Oh, okay.
confirming that you're enrolled. We do find that there's some people that didn't enroll in the Remote Learning Academy. We have some duplicates, or that they were signing up thinking they were registering for school and they're really just signing up for Remote Learning Academy. So due to the way that the responses came in, we went to on the back end to make sure that we have the correct information. We are looking at the wait list thoroughly also. So when we look at the people that this week have been put on a wait list, we want to look at our numbers accurately to allow as many people in as possible from the wait list. So our goal is early next week to send out an email communication confirming your enrollment in the Remote Learning Academy and giving you some information on what to look forward to over the next couple weeks as far as our communication with you. How does that sound? Is that
Very
okay,
good.
Superintendent
I
Wright?
thought the look was that you were like, no, we're going to have it done today.
No. Remember
Okay.
you said we're doing a lot in a short
Yeah,
amount
yeah,
of
yeah.
time, and
Okay.
you're telling them today's their last chance to go in and give us an answer, so we need to process this over the weekend.
Okay. Last question, will kids need to wear masks outside? I would say that the same rules apply, in that if distancing is compromised, then masks should be worn. But if students are outside and students are distanced, then masks don't have to be worn. Okay? All right, we are out of time. We came pretty close to answering.
Before we
okay.
close, can I say
Yeah.
one thing?
Sure.
Because I think it is important. You're hearing that we have a lot to uplift, right? And there are still some decisions that has to be made. But again, one of the things that we're asking parents is, even throughout the year, there has to be a lot of communication back and forth between the district and you. So it is important that we have updated information for you at all times. Sometimes there will be a need for you to change your emails or your phone numbers. Please make sure that the minute you change these things, that you also contact us so that we have the latest information for you. Because in case of an emergency, we need to be able to reach you right away.
Okay, thanks, Nurlan. All right, we are out of time, but here's the deal. We didn't get to every question, but I will say this session, we came as close as we have compared with the other sessions. But we will, any questions that we didn't answer during the session, we will respond in writing, and we will post those answers so that they're available to the community. We thank you for your participation today. We know that your schedules are very busy, so we appreciate your time and your thinking. Have a great weekend, and again, thank you for your continued support. Stay well.